Before the year 2000, Shaquille O'Neal was a giant living off raw talent. He ate what he wanted, partied late, and coasted on size and charisma. Even on the eve of finals battles, Shaq admitted he wasn't locked in.
That was my fault we lost.
Why you say that?
Because as a leader, I didn't lead.
But everything changed with the arrival of Phil Jackson. Under the Zen Master's guidance, Shaq became something terrifying. 345 pounds of muscle moving with the speed of a guard, breaking rims, breaking records, breaking opponents' spirits. His footwork was sharp. His presence is undeniable. By 2000, the Big Diesel wasn't just great. He was unstoppable. And if you love epic NBA stories like this, make sure to subscribe to Amazing Hoops, where legends live forever. And now, let's dive into the year when Shaquille O'Neal finally silenced every critic. An MVP season so dominant, it redefined what greatness could look like in the NBA. Shaquille O'Neal's path to greatness was never neat, never straight. It was messy, raw, and full of contradictions. He was a larger-than-life character who filled arenas with dunks and laughter. Yet his immaturity often sabotaged the very dominance he was destined for. Before the year 2000, Shaq was known as much for his personality as for his production. He wasn't just a center, he was an entertainer. He rapped, released albums, acted in films like Blue Chips and Kazam, and danced through commercials. Fans loved him for it. He was magnetic, fun, impossible to ignore. But critics weren't fooled. They saw the late nights, the skipped workouts, the lack of conditioning. Shaq's got all the talent in the world, but he doesn't take the game seriously enough. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar once said, echoing the frustration of many legends. Even his own teammates noticed. He partied hard, ate recklessly, and coasted on natural gifts that no other player possessed. Dennis Scott, his former Orlando Magic teammate, once joked about how often they'd find themselves out on the town when they should have been preparing for the biggest games of their lives. The pattern was clear. Shaq could break rims, but he couldn't yet break through to a championship. The harshest lesson came in the mid-90s season, when Shaq's Orlando Magic ran into Hakeem Olajuwon and the Houston Rockets in the 1995 NBA Finals. The contrast was devastating. Shaq, still young and raw, faced Olajuwon at his peak, polished, disciplined, relentless. Hakeem's legendary footwork, the dream shake, made Shaq look helpless. O'Neal later admitted, "When I ran into Keem, it was all me. I wasn't ready." The Rockets swept the Magic in 4 games, and commentators hammered the point home. Bill Walton declared, "Hakeem is playing chess while Shaq is still learning checkers." Shaq carried that scar with him. It haunted him, gnawing at him. He realized that brute force alone wasn't enough. He could tear down backboards with thunderous dunks, but leadership couldn't be faked. Without discipline, without preparation, without that burning edge, he would always fall short. And so the question lingered, would Shaq forever be remembered as the showman who wasted his gifts? Or would he find the resolve to transform into the champion the world expected him to be? The summer of 1999 was the turning point. For years, Shaquille O'Neal had played under a carousel of coaches, 5 different head coaches in his first 7 seasons, yet none had the pedigree or presence to command his respect. He was a superstar without a governor, a locomotive without tracks. Then came Phil Jackson, the Zen Master, the man who sculpted Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls into a dynasty of 6 championships. When Jackson walked into Los Angeles, he didn't need to raise his voice. The rings on his fingers spoke louder than words. Jackson later recalled,
"And when I looked at that opportunity to coach him, I was extremely excited because I'd never had a dominant center to coach in an offense that really had a system built around putting the ball in the post and really activating a center, allowing him to be the dominant playmaker in the game."
Shaq had always been larger than life, but under Jackson, he was asked to be larger than the game itself. Phil demanded accountability, discipline, and a willingness to sacrifice. His philosophy wasn't just about basketball, it was about control of the mind. Shaq, who had never responded well to soft nudges, suddenly faced a coach whose gravitas was undeniable. Phil was different, Shaq later said. He had this presence. He didn't have to yell, he just had to look at you. What happened next was nothing short of remarkable. O'Neal entered the 1999-2000 season at 345 pounds, but it wasn't the bloated weight of years past. This was sculpted, intimidating muscle. He had finally committed to conditioning. The transformation was so visible that even broadcasters couldn't contain their awe. Marv Albert once exclaimed during a broadcast, "We have never seen a man this size move with such quickness and grace." And it wasn't just about appearances. Shaq was faster in transition, lighter on his feet, and sharper in the post. He no longer lumbered. He attacked. His footwork was tighter, his spins quicker, his dominance more deliberate. Under Jackson's watch, the Big Diesel wasn't merely revving his engine. He was roaring down the highway at full throttle. But the deeper question remained. Could this new, disciplined version of Shaq finally carry the Lakers where he had failed before? Could Phil Jackson replicate the magic he once found with Jordan and Pippen? The NBA world leaned forward, waiting for the answer. And as Jerry West, the Lakers' legendary GM, would later admit, Phil got through to Shaq in a way no one else ever had. He made him believe not just in himself, but in the team. That belief was the ignition that lit one of the most dominant seasons the league had ever witnessed. Shaquille O'Neal's numbers never lied. Year after year, he piled up statistics that would define another man's career. 27 points a game, 12 rebounds, nearly 3 blocks, 60% shooting from the field. For most players, that resume would be enough to carve a place in the Hall of Fame. But for Shaq, those numbers were both proof of greatness and evidence of waste. Because while the numbers painted dominance, the results told another story. The truth was harsh. Shaq had been swept out of the playoffs 5 times in his first 7 seasons. It wasn't just the losses, it was the manner of them. Brutal, lopsided, embarrassing exits that undercut the aura of invincibility his stats suggested. He could overpower men in the regular season, but when the lights grew hottest, his discipline melted away. Off the court, Shaq was Hollywood before he was hardwood. He filmed movies like Kazam and Steel, released 4 rap albums, and appeared in countless commercials. He became a pop culture icon, a figure larger than the game itself. Kids adored him, brands chased him, and cameras loved him. But basketball's elders weren't impressed. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar questioned whether Shaq was serious about being great, once remarking that he's too easily satisfied with being a celebrity. Bill Walton, never shy with a microphone, blasted him on broadcasts, lamenting that Shaq should be the most dominant ever. But he doesn't prepare the way greatness demands. Even Jerry West, the man who brought him to Los Angeles, wondered privately whether Shaq had the hunger to chase championships. Shaq himself never denied the criticism. He admitted in a 1998 interview. To some, that sounded like confidence. To others, it sounded like complacency. And then there was Kobe Bryant. At just 21 years old, Kobe already saw what others missed. He thought Shaq was wasting his gifts. Kobe wanted rings, not movie roles. He demanded the same fire from his teammates that he carried inside himself, and he didn't see it in Shaq, at least, not yet. Their tension would become legend. But in the late 1999 season, it was born out of one simple truth. Kobe believed Shaq had the tools to be the greatest ever, but lacked the discipline to seize it.
Some of your teammates talking bad about Kobe.
Ty Lue, Harper, yeah, they were sitting there talking shit. And Kobe was right here. And they're talking shit. I'm seeing Kobe like this.
By 1999, the narrative around Shaquille O'Neal was cemented. A lovable superstar, yes. A global icon? Absolutely. But a champion? Not yet. He had power but no proof. Critics said he cared more about fame than rings, more about spotlight than sacrifice. And so the question loomed over him like a shadow. Would Shaq go down as a wasted giant, or would he finally flip the switch? In 2000, O'Neal set out to silence every critic and prove that dominance, when disciplined, could be historic. Phil Jackson never believed in long speeches. His power wasn't in volume, it was in presence. When Shaquille O'Neal first visited him in Montana in the summer of 1999, he expected to talk basketball, X's and O's, post touches, and triangle spacing. Instead, Jackson gestured toward a massive fallen tree on his property. "Help me move it," he said. Shaq, 7'1" and 345 pounds, strained, sweated, and pushed. By the time the job was done, Shaq realized something. This wasn't a coach who would coddle him. Then Jackson spoke plainly. "Lose 15 pounds. Protect your knees. I need you for 40 minutes a night. It wasn't a suggestion. It was an order. For the first time in his career, Shaq listened. Why? Because Phil Jackson had what no other coach before him could show: rings. 6 of them. Proof that his way worked. Shaq respected that authority. Phil was the only guy I truly listened to, Shaq later admitted. He challenged me, and I needed that. When training camp opened, teammates couldn't believe what they saw. This wasn't the playful, out-of-shape Shaq they had grown used to. This was a different animal, sculpted, conditioned, fierce. At 345 pounds, he wasn't carrying excess weight. He was pure muscle, ready for war. Rick Fox later recalled, he came in chiseled, and you could just feel the energy shift. The big diesel was finely tuned. Commentators noticed instantly. During preseason games, Marv Albert marveled, "We've never seen a man this size move with such quickness." Analysts pointed out how much faster Shaq looked in transition, how much sharper his footwork was in the post. Even his defense, often criticized, looked renewed, his lateral movement quicker, his rotations more precise. But perhaps the biggest change wasn't in Shaq's body, it was in his mindset. For the first time, he embraced responsibility. He knew Jackson wasn't simply asking for weight loss, he was demanding maturity. Would Shaq finally prove that dominance wasn't just about strength but about discipline? Could he turn raw power into sustained greatness? In 2000, the answer would be undeniable. The Zen Master hadn't just trained Shaq's body, he had unlocked his will. Phil Jackson knew that molding Shaquille O'Neal into a disciplined giant was only half the battle. The other half was Kobe Bryant. At just 21 years old, Kobe was already obsessed with becoming the greatest of all time. He studied Michael Jordan's every move, mimicked his footwork, his fadeaway, even his mentality. But Kobe wasn't content to play sidekick. He wanted the ball in his hands, every possession, every moment. So when Jackson announced that the Lakers' new triangle offense would run through Shaq, the reactions could not have been more different. Shaq was thrilled. Finally, an offense built to maximize his size and dominance. Kobe, however, was furious. Why should everything go through Shaq, he thought. He believed he was ready to be the alpha. Practices grew toxic. Kobe dribbled into double teams, forced contested shots, and ignored the rhythm of the offense. Teammates rolled their eyes, frustrated. Brian Shaw later recalled,
especially early on, just chased the ball where he broke it all the time. So the second unit, which was, Robert, myself, Rick Fox, Fish, we actually executed the triangle better,
yeah.
Right? Because we didn't have, when we came in, we might have one of those guys in, Shaq or Kobe, with the rest of us, but we had to execute and actually run it.
The situation grew so strained that Shaq and the veterans devised a secret signal. When Kobe went into hero mode, they simply wouldn't pass him the ball. It was a quiet rebellion, proof of just how deep the tension ran. Rick Fox later admitted, there were times when we just froze Kobe out because he wouldn't run the offense. The standoff might have destroyed the Lakers before their run even began, but fate intervened. Early in the season, Kobe injured his wrist, forcing him to miss 6 weeks, and in his absence, something remarkable happened. The triangle offense flowed seamlessly. Shaq was the undisputed centerpiece, averaging nearly 30 points and 13 rebounds per game during that stretch. The Lakers surged to the top of the Western Conference standings, playing their most cohesive basketball in years. Commentators took notice. Doug Collins remarked during a broadcast, "This is the best I've ever seen Shaquille O'Neal play. He's unselfish, he's engaged, and the system is built perfectly for him." Even skeptics like Jerry West began to believe. Of course, Kobe's return would reignite tensions. But for those 6 weeks, the Lakers looked like champions in waiting. And the lesson was clear. When Shaq was the sun around which the offense revolved, the Lakers were unstoppable. The question that lingered was simple but dangerous. Could two supernovas, Shaq and Kobe, share the same sky without colliding? To the casual eye, Shaquille O'Neal was brute force and sneakers. A wrecking ball who shattered backboards. A giant who bullied smaller men. But those who truly watched in 2000 saw something more. Something beautiful. Behind the power was artistry. Behind the bulldozer was a ballet dancer. Shaq's signature move, the Black Tornado, became a weapon no defender could solve. He'd invite contact, wait for the defender to lean just slightly. 1 second you thought you had him pinned, the next he was dropping the ball softly into the basket. It was like watching a man disappear in front of you. Kenny Smith recalled of guarding Shaq in practice. His repertoire deepened. He had hooks with both hands, short turnaround jumpers, and footwork that belied his size. For someone weighing 345 pounds, his agility was shocking. Charles Barkley summed it up with brutal honesty. You can't guard him. All you can do is foul him and pray. And foul him they did. Hack-a-Shaq became a necessary evil, because no one could stop him cleanly. But in 2000, Shaq wasn't just an offensive juggernaut, he evolved defensively too. For much of his career, critics accused him of laziness on defense, of saving his energy for dunks. That year was different. He rotated with urgency, contested shots with purpose, and protected the paint like a fortress. Early in the season, he averaged a career-high 3.5 blocks per game, a staggering number for a player often dismissed as indifferent on that end. Guards who once dared to attack the rim now met a wall of muscle and timing. Even his conditioning played a role. Shaq was lighter on his feet, quicker to recover, and more engaged in defensive schemes. Phil Jackson noticed it immediately. He's not just scoring. He's thinking defense, he's thinking team. That's when I knew we could win. So what do you call a player who could crush you with power but also glide with skill? What do you call a man who forced triple teams yet still improved his defense? In 2000, the answer was simple. You called him unstoppable. Momentum is a strange thing in sports. Once it begins, it snowballs. Carrying a team higher than talent alone can explain. For the 1999 to 2000 Lakers, momentum became a tidal wave. Starting in February, they rattled off 19 straight wins, suffocating opponents with defense, smashing them with offense. Their average margin of victory was double digits. Staples Center became a fortress, a place where visiting teams knew they were walking into a storm, led by a 345-pound hurricane named Shaquille O'Neal. But even amid the streak, one night stood out. The 6th of March, 2000, Shaq's 28th birthday. Against the Los Angeles Clippers, he authored the greatest game of his life. 61 points, 23 rebounds, 24 of 35 shooting. Not a single three-pointer attempted. It was old school, bruising basketball, and it was devastating. Dunk after dunk shook the rim. Hook shots floated effortlessly. Spin moves left defenders spinning themselves. By the time the final buzzer sounded, Staples Center wasn't just loud. It was trembling. Fans described it like an earthquake. The Clippers, utterly helpless, tried everything: double teams, hard fouls, sending multiple bodies at Shaq. Nothing worked. Commentators could barely contain themselves. Chick Hearn, the legendary Lakers broadcaster, summed it up with awe. This is one of the greatest individual performances I've ever seen in this building. What made it even more remarkable was the context. The Lakers had been running away with the league, and Shaq had already secured his place as the MVP frontrunner. Yet on this night, he elevated even higher. His 61 points became the most ever scored in Staples Center at the time, and it remained the last 60-point game without a three-pointer until Giannis Antetokounmpo erupted for 64 in 2023. Fans who witnessed it live described it with disbelief. One fan was quoted in the Los Angeles Times. It was like he was playing against children. He was bigger, stronger, faster, and there was nothing anyone could do. Even Shaq himself later admitted that the game was special. That was for the people who said I couldn't be dominant every night. On my birthday, I had to give them something to remember. That night, Shaq wasn't just dominant. He was transcendent. It wasn't merely a basketball game. It was a reminder that when fully unleashed, he was more force of nature than man. The 1999 to 2000 Lakers weren't just good, they were historic. With Phil Jackson orchestrating the triangle offense and Shaquille O'Neal anchoring both ends of the floor, Los Angeles finished the season with a 67-15 record, the best in the NBA, and the 6th best in league history at the time. To put that dominance into perspective, the season before they ranked 23rd in defensive rating. By 2000, they were number 1. It was a transformation as stunning as it was sudden, and at the center of it stood Shaq. His individual numbers bordered on the absurd. 29.7 points, 13.6 rebounds, 3.8 assists, and nearly 3 blocks per game. He shot 57.4% from the field, capturing the scoring title. It was the kind of stat line that felt like it belonged in a video game rather than real life. And yet, night after night, Shaq put up those numbers against double teams, triple teams, and defenses designed solely to slow him down. When MVP voting came around, there was no real debate. O'Neal collected 120 of 121 first-place votes, the largest margin of victory in MVP history to that point. The only holdout was Fred Hickman of CNN, who famously cast his line first-place vote for Allen Iverson. To this day, Shaq jokes about the snub, but the truth is clear. He should have been the first unanimous MVP in NBA history. That idiot messed it up, Shaq once said with a laugh. But everybody knew I was the most dominant that year. The accolades piled up. All NBA first team, all defensive second team, scoring champion, NBA MVP. But more than the awards, Shaq finally earned what he had craved most: respect. The same critics who once questioned his work ethic now marveled at his transformation. Commentators like QB Brown called his season the most dominant I've seen in modern basketball. Even Kobe Bryant, his fiercest critic, later admitted, most dominating player I've ever seen. By the end of the season, there was no debate. Shaquille O'Neal wasn't just the most dominant center in the league. He was the best player alive. And with the Lakers charging into the playoffs, the question wasn't whether they could win it all. It was how many teams could even survive standing in their path. The regular season had cemented Shaquille O'Neal as the league's MVP. But the playoffs? That was where reputations were carved into stone. In 2000, Shaq didn't just protect his legacy, he elevated it. The first test came against the Sacramento Kings, led by Chris Webber and Jason Williams. The Kings were young, fast, and unafraid. They pushed the Lakers to a decisive Game 5, a dangerous position for a top seed. But Shaq silenced the noise with a performance that screamed dominance. 32 points, 18 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 blocks. He attacked relentlessly, controlling the paint and snuffing out Sacramento's hopes. The Lakers advanced, but the message was clear. Shaq wasn't just along for the ride, he was carrying the load. The second round was smoother. Against the Phoenix Suns, Shaq averaged 30 points and 16 rebounds, overwhelming their undersized frontcourt. The Lakers closed the series in 5, and Shaq looked unstoppable. Yet waiting in the Western Conference Finals was a team built for war, the Portland Trail Blazers. The Blazers had depth, experience, and size. Scottie Pippen brought championship pedigree, Rasheed Wallace was in his prime, and Arvydas Sabonis, though slowed by injuries, was still 7'3" of savvy and strength. Unlike other teams, they had the bodies to throw at Shaq. Portland slowed him, clogged the paint, and pushed the series to a winner-take-all Game 7. For 3 quarters, it looked like a disaster. The Lakers trailed by 15 in the 4th. Staples Center was silent, a nervous hush hanging in the air. Another collapse loomed, the kind of choke that critics had long accused Shaq of leading. And then, the comeback. Kobe Bryant slashed, hit jumpers, and set the tempo. Shaq, battered and doubled all night, kept battling inside. Slowly, possession by possession, the lead shrank. Then came the defining moment. With under a minute left, Kobe drove into the lane, defenders collapsing. He lobbed the ball high. Shaq rose through the air, hands outstretched, and detonated a dunk that shook the arena, arms raised, mouth wide open. Staples erupted like an earthquake. Chick Hearn, the voice of the Lakers, captured it perfectly. Kobe-to-Shaq, it's over. That alley-oop wasn't just 2 points. It was resurrection. It was the exorcism of years of doubt. And it was the moment Shaq became undeniable, the centerpiece of a team on its way to a dynasty. By the time the 2000 NBA Finals arrived, the Indiana Pacers were battle-tested. Reggie Miller was still one of the league's most feared shooters. Jalen Rose had emerged as a reliable scorer. Rick Smits, Mark Jackson, and Dale Davis gave them size and toughness. They had grit, they had balance, they had veteran poise, but what they didn't have, what no team had, was an answer for Shaquille O'Neal. From the opening tip of Game 1, Shaq made that clear. He bulldozed his way through Indiana's front line, scoring 43 points and grabbing 19 rebounds. Dale Davis and Rick Smits fouled, shoved, and clawed, but it was like trying to hold back a tidal wave. There was nothing we could do, Smits admitted years later. He was too strong, too quick, too determined. Game 2 was even more lopsided. Shaq finished with 40 points and 24 rebounds, ripping rebounds out of the air as if they belonged only to him. Larry Bird, coaching the Pacers at the time, could only shake his head on the sideline. He later said, "That was the most dominant finals performance I had ever seen in person." Then came adversity. In Game 2, Kobe Bryant landed on Jalen Rose's foot, spraining his ankle. He missed Game 3 and played hurt the rest of the series. For many teams, losing a star like Kobe would have been a death sentence. For Shaq, it was an invitation to take complete control. Possession after possession, he demolished Indiana's defense. Post hooks, drop steps, dunks, it was relentless. By Game 6, with the championship within reach, Shaq closed the series with 41 points and 12 rebounds. When the final buzzer sounded, Kobe, just 21 years old, leapt into Shaq's arms, a moment frozen in NBA history. Staples Center roared, and a dynasty was officially born. For the series, Shaq averaged 38 points, 16.7 rebounds, and 2.7 blocks while shooting 61% from the field. Those numbers weren't just good, they were mythical. No finals since Wilt Chamberlain had seen a big man dominate with such consistency. Doug Collins called it the greatest final series ever by a center. There was no debate, no doubt, no hesitation. Shaquille O'Neal was Finals MVP. He wasn't just the best player on the floor, he was the most unstoppable force basketball had ever seen. When the dust settled on the 2000 playoffs, the numbers told a story almost too staggering to believe. In 23 games, Shaquille O'Neal averaged 30.7 points, 15.4 rebounds, 3.1 assists, and 2.4 blocks. He turned the ball over just 2 points 4 times per game. Remarkable considering that every single possession funneled through him, and that defenses schemed solely to stop him. He joined an exclusive club with Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Hakeem Olajuwon, legends who had averaged over 30 points per game in a championship run. But Shaq's style was unlike theirs. Jordan danced with footwork and fadeaways. Kareem soared with his skyhook. Hakeem mesmerized with his dream shake. Shaq? He did not finesse. He was overwhelmed. He bent defenses until they broke. Teams threw 2, even 3 defenders at him. They wrapped their arms around him, hammered him with fouls, and employed the infamous hack-a-Shaq. And still, they couldn't stop him. His presence warped the game. Entire defensive schemes collapsed into the paint, leaving shooters wide open. Teammates like Kobe Bryant, Glenn Rice, and Derek Fisher thrived off the gravity Shaq created. Every shot, every pass, every rebound started with him. The impact was so clear that even owners and legends were left speechless. Lakers owner Jerry Buss said it best. Quite honestly, Shaq played probably the best basketball any player has ever played. Charles Barkley, never one to sugarcoat, echoed the sentiment. He was the most unstoppable force I've ever seen on a basketball court. And that's the paradox of Shaq in 2000. He wasn't the most skilled player of all time. He didn't shoot threes, didn't dominate with elegance, and never built his game on polish. But dominance doesn't always wear silk. Sometimes it wears steel. Sometimes it shakes backboards. Sometimes it is so overwhelming that even Hall of Famers look small in its shadow. So the question lingers. In that spring of 2000, was anyone, Jordan, Kareem, Hakeem, capable of matching what Shaq brought? The answer, whispered by players, coaches, and fans alike, was always the same. No, not then, not ever. The year 2000 was the year of Shaquille O'Neal. He entered the season with critics calling him soft, unfocused, and unserious. He ended it with an MVP, a Finals MVP, a championship, and a reputation as the most dominant force the game had ever seen. His 61-point birthday game still echoes through time. His alley-oop against Portland is replayed as one of the most iconic highlights in NBA history. His finals averages remain unmatched. Was he the most skilled? No. But basketball isn't only about skill, it's about impact. And in 2000, Shaq's impact was seismic. He bent the league to his will. He created space for teammates. He destroyed defenses. He carried a franchise. That year, Shaq wasn't just great. He was untouchable, unstoppable, unrepeatable. Shaq in 2000 wasn't just the most dominant player of his era. He was, for that one year, the best player of all time. If you like this video, don't forget to press the subscribe button and ring the bell to not miss the latest videos from Amazing Hoops. Please leave your comments and suggestions below in the comments section, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. This action also motivates us to try harder. Have a nice day.